All right, hey everybody, welcome to Cinco de Mayo. We are in the future right now, and this is what we're going to be learning about with our energy lab. So, you guys should have this worksheet out, the one with the big, huge chart. Da, 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 da. All right, so I'm going to explain what we're going to be doing here. Okay, the objective of this simulation is that each one of you guys is going to be expected to play the part of an organism found in a food web simulation. Okay, so this is a simulation, okay, meaning it's fake. It's not a game, it's not a competition. At the end, you guys are going to need to be able to explain how energy is transferred from one organism to another in the simulated environment, and also be able to describe the effects of energy loss upon the outcome of the simulation. Okay, that is our objective. So, introduction and overview. In this simulation, students, you guys are going to be playing the roles of organisms found in a coral reef ecosystem of the South Pacific Ocean. You will each carry a quantity of poker chips to represent the amount of energy you have available to you for the time of the simulation. So even though we have poker chips, again, it's not a game, okay, it's not a competition, it's a simulation. You will be free to roam around the room and ask other students what they represent. So we are going to be walking around the room. Actually, we're going to be doing this outside with Miss Catron's class or Miss Palmer's class, and we're all going to be working on this together so that we have enough organisms to feed on each other. You will have a chart that describes who eats whom and the amount of energy to be transferred to the predator when your organism is eaten. Okay, so that's this chart right here. Okay, which you guys are going to be studying. All right, and we'll get into the chart in a moment. The organism you represent will also have to give up energy in the form of poker chips, each time you ask and find that the other organism is one you cannot eat. Okay, so if you try to eat somebody and you can't eat them, then you lose energy, and that's going to go into an energy loss container. Your teacher will assign each student with an organism that you are to represent. Okay, so you guys are going to get assigned organisms at random. The purpose of the simulation is to observe how energy is transferred from organism to organism during feeding in an ecosystem food web. Okay, so we're simulating a food web in action here. All right, any questions so far? So the rules, the guidelines. So like I said, your teacher is going to assign you one of the organisms living in the ecosystem, and it will be at random. And it's going to be in the form of these envelopes that Mr. Dunn painstakingly put together. Okay, so in each envelope, okay, right on the inside, there is a word telling you what organism you might represent. So for example, this one is a shark. Okay, so we want to keep our identity secret. Okay, and I'm going to mix that one up so you guys don't get the shark, unless you're super duper lucky. Once you figure out what organism you are, you're going to read the information from the chart to find out what you can eat and what can eat you. The information for the organism you represent is important, and you should memorize it before the simulation begins. Okay, you can also walk around with this information as well. Okay, so you'll be able to refer to it during the simulation. EU is energy units, and the chip quantities are as follows. A blue chip is worth 100 energy units, a red chip is 25, and a white chip is 5 energy units. Okay? All right, so let's do a hermit crab example. Let's pretend you were lucky enough to pull out a hermit crab for your organism. So you're going to represent a hermit crab for this simulation, and that is a member of the arthropod group. If you're a hermit crab, take a look at the chart. Hermit crab is kind of in the middle area, okay, underneath arthropods, hermit crab, or mantis shrimp. Okay? It says you are to obtain 50 energy units in poker chips. Okay, so in your envelope, you should have chips that add up to 50 energy units. So before we start, you want to secretly check that to make sure you have the correct amount of energy. Okay, 50 energy units. That would be 5 white poker chips and 1 red poker chip. This is the total amount of energy you have to start the simulation. Okay, so again, looking at the chart, you're going to memorize that you eat only zooplankton and phytoplankton. Okay, zooplankton is animal plankton, phytoplankton is like plant plankton. You get 5 energy units every time you find and eat some zooplankton, and 10 energy units for phytoplankton. Okay, so let's say I'm a hermit crab, and I walk up to a student, and I say, "Hi, what are you?" And Mr. Dunn says, "I'm phytoplankton." Then I get to take some of his energy units, because that is one of my food sources. Okay? Or if it's zooplankton, okay, I get food as well. Notice that you can be eaten only by big fish. Okay, so if I'm walking around again, and Mr. Dunn comes up to me and says, "What are you?" "I'm a big fish." Then I'm going to say, "I'm an arthropod." And then I have to give him 20 energy units, because he ate me a little bit. When searching for food, you will ask others what organism they represent. If you cannot eat them, you must go to one of the energy loss containers at one end of the room and deposit 5 energy in one of the containers. So again, if I go up to Mr. Dunn and I say, "Mr. Dunn, what are you?" And he says, "I'm a shark." Okay, hermit crabs can't eat sharks, so I lose energy. I don't give the energy to the shark, I put the energy in one of the energy loss containers. Okay, and that would be 5. Okay, so all that information is on your chart for each animal, each organism. Okay, hermit crab example. Any questions? Yes, Jack.
What happens if you run out of energy?
If you run out of energy, sadly you die. Jack?
What did the phytoplankton do?
We'll get to phytoplankton in a moment. Okay, that's a very good question. Skylar?
What if you get all the way to 100? Can you go any further?
If you go to 100 energy units, you get as much energy as you can. But remember, it's not a game. Okay, it's a simulation. Matthew?
What if you try to eat someone who can eat you?
That's a good question. If you try to eat someone that can eat you, okay, then you lose energy in one of the energy loss containers, but they can't turn around and eat you back. Only the person that asks is allowed to eat. Only the person that initiates the encounter is allowed to eat. Okay, Matthew?
What do we do when we die?
If you die, then you become a ghost and you just float around and watch everybody else. Yes, and we are sorry. Some of you guys sadly will die in the simulation, but that's life. Good questions, you guys. All right, let's move on. So, once you've obtained the appropriate number and color of poker chips for the organism you represent, don't tell others what you represent. Also, keep your poker chips out of sight so you do not give a clue to others about your identity. So when we come around and you guys pick your organism and you look at it, fortunately we have these masks because I found you guys don't have very good poker faces, okay? But don't open it up and say, "Yes, I'm a shark." Oops, no, I'm not really a shark, okay? Or, "Oh man, I'm zooplankton," or something like that. Okay, so keep your identity a secret, and when you look at the chips, okay, look at them secretly because the amount of chips might give others a clue as to your identity. So you need to keep it a secret the whole time, okay, unless you're having an interaction with somebody. So when your teacher gives the signal, and again, we'll be outside with another class, you're going to stand up and move around outside, and you can ask only 5 others, okay, one at a time, what they represent. Okay, do not ask the same student 2 times. Okay, so if I go up to Cade and I'm a shark and he's a fish and I eat him, I can't go back around here and come up and eat him again and again and again until he's dead. Okay, you're only allowed to have an interaction with one student, one at a time. Okay, when you tell us what you are, either whisper or point to the name on a piece of paper. Okay, either whisper or point to what you are. This way others will not overhear what you are and gain an advantage when they ask next. Okay, also don't be sneaking around trying to look and see what other people are. Try to do it at random. I know how competitive you guys can be, but again, this is a simulation, not a competition. If you can eat them, collect the appropriate energy units. If you cannot eat them, place the appropriate energy units in the energy loss container. Okay, so if I was a hermit crab and I ask another hermit crab if I can eat them, if it's the same organism, the person that asks ends up losing energy and putting it in the energy loss container. The other organism doesn't do anything. Okay, like you guys asked, if you lose all your energy, sadly you are dead. You must sit down. After you've asked 5 others, you can no longer eat anything. Okay, however, you still walk around and other people can still ask you. So you could interact with 10, 11, 12 other students, but you must try to eat 5 times. Okay? So don't sit down because you're alive and well with lots of energy. So no playing dead. Okay? Remember, the purpose of the simulation is not to win and collect the most poker chips. Proceed by the rules, and the data obtained will be useful in the analysis of this model simulation. Okay? All right, so a couple reminders. Keep your identity secret until the end of the second round. So we're actually going to be doing 2 rounds. Okay, so the first round, we're going to ask 5 people, and other people might ask you at the same time. We're going to sit down, we're going to count up our chips secretly, and we're going to do a second round of 5 interactions, okay, with different students. Okay, that's where we're combining classes, so that we have at least 25 or 30 other students that are part of this. All organisms except phytoplankton must initiate 5 encounters per round. So if you're phytoplankton, you drift around and you have encounters, but they do not initiate encounters. So if you're a phytoplankton, you just walk around and wait for people to ask you what you are. Okay, and if they can eat you, you have to give them energy, but you don't ask anybody. Now, if you're phytoplankton, I don't want you guys floating around like this, saying, oh, I'm phytoplankton, I'm just drifting around in the ocean, okay, like this, because we don't want to give anyone a clue as to what your identity is. Also, no running away from each other, okay? This isn't a game, okay? So if someone's trying to eat you, you don't run until they catch you, okay? Had that happen before. And again, a reminder, only the organism that initiates the encounter may eat. All right? So once you've done the first round of 5, okay, being the same character, being the same organism, like I said, you're going to repeat it again for 5 more encounters, beginning with energy you had at the end of the first simulation. And the same rules will apply. You must have encounters with different students every time. And again, wait for the teacher to signal when to begin. Okay, are there any questions? Any other questions? Jack?
So, like for example, when you initiate an encounter, you can tell the other person what you are.
Yes. So when you have an encounter, you both tell each other what you are.
And say I ask someone, and now they know that I'm like a small fish and they're a shark. I ask them, say, can I eat you? And they say no, because they're a shark. And they then turn around and ask me.
No, they cannot. Only the person that asks is allowed to eat.
But then
Okay?
when they go away, then come back to me and ask me.
No, you always have to have encounters with different
You
students.
can't encounter the same person twice.
Correct. You cannot encounter the same person twice. Good question. Other question. Matthew?
Is like everything gonna be even, or is it gonna be like more sharks than other animals?
That's another good question. Will there be an even number of organisms? I don't know. We're going to have to find out. It's a simulation. That's a good question. We'll find out later. Any other questions? Okay, at the end of the simulation, okay, you guys are going to add up how much energy you have at the end, and then we're going to be creating a data table, okay, which I'll be typing in, okay, and then you'll have access to that data table when you do your analysis questions, which are on the back side of that paper. Okay, if there are any more questions, feel free to email me or ask your teacher or ask us on Thursday or Friday when we do this simulation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the future.